It is the NASCAR DFS Strategy Show right here at Awesemo.com. We're live here on Saturday afternoon here on the East Coast, just afternoon Eastern time. Race Sheets, Phil, man, how you doing, brother? That's awesome to hear. Obviously, we got the Coke Zero Sugar 400. Anyone knows me knows I'm a big fan of Coke Zero. So looking forward to this race cup here tonight. But as always, what we like to do is to start the show off by talking about some opening questions that I just have for you after, as I always sit here, I don't try to sit here and proclaim that I am this NASCAR analyst, but, I was reading your article and the thing that jumped out to me was how you talked about with this being the regular season finale of how, kind of what's at stake for everyone here. So in terms for you, as you are breaking down this race, how does this being the regular season finale and drivers trying to get into the playoffs play into how you are putting together your lineups?
It takes a race that was already going to be chaotic to begin with because this is Daytona, and it just amplifies it. If whether you're a NASCAR fan or not, surely everybody out there should know when it comes to tracks like Daytona and Talladega, people tune in for one thing. They want to see the big one. They want to see the big wreck that takes out the majority of the field. As much as people don't want to say it, they want to see the type of wreck that involved Ryan Newman. Now, God bless Ryan Newman. He survived an accident that he shouldn't have survived at the very beginning of the season. But that's what people anticipate with Daytona because of the banking, because of the speed, because of the draft. Well, and NASCAR's desire to make the end of the regular season worth that much more as they maneuvered the regular season schedule around. They've placed Daytona as the end of the regular season, which gives that much more opportunity for a driver that is top 30, 17 through 30 in points to win this race and move their way into the playoffs. So you add that component to this race. I mean, it makes it that much more likely that we could see an absolute wreck fest tonight, especially towards the end of that race, where one of these drivers, 17 through 30, could be within the lead and knows I've got to make an aggressive move here to get to the front. And in doing so, they might secure themselves a win or they might take out everybody behind them.
Another thing that you had wrote this week on Awesemo.com was about, Daytona and you said, look, if you're a beginning, NASCAR DFS player, read this article. The link is in your preview article. But what I wrote down of what you wrote, you said, simply put, drivers near the front have too much potential to lose fancy points, while drivers in the back have lots of potential to gain points.
Yeah, it's the nature of we call them plate races, but they're no longer using restrictor plates on the carburetors. It's more of a tapered spacer, but that's for a whole nother discussion. But what you have here is this component where everybody's car is basically the same. I mean, those punts that we make fun of every week, the Quinn House, the Brennan Pools, the J.J. Yaleys, the Garrett Smithleys, although Garrett's not racing today, James Davidson's racing. All of these guys that we just kind of pass off because we know they don't have the R&D going into their cars. They don't have the horsepower. They don't have the talent, quite frankly, going into their cars. Well, here in this race, I mean, James Davidson's car is essentially the same as what you're getting out of Chase Elliott. What you're getting out of J.J. Yaley is what you're getting out of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. The rules and the tapered spacers, what they do with these cars, it makes everyone basically the same. So there's not some big make model advantage for these drivers up at the front, the big name guys versus these guys at the back. And when you add on that component of the draft, I mean, it's just so easy for somebody starting at the front to lose their way and finish towards the rear, and then vice versa, somebody at the back to move their way up to the front, whether that just be because of the draft itself, attrition through wrecks, what have you. The trend over the last couple of years here at Daytona has been, it doesn't matter where you're on the track. You could get involved with a wreck. But beforehand, the sneaky play was that these top tier guys would get out towards the front and they would try to sit on the lead, much like Dale Earnhardt Jr. used to do. Because if I'm up at the front, then I can't get involved with the big one. Well, that's flipped on its head, and now you're just as likely to get caught up in a wreck if you're at the front, whether you're in the middle or you're in the back. So you've got these guys starting up at the front, and the only place that they have to go is to the rear.
For anyone who has listened to our shows over the years, they know that we are very much of we break it down into tiers, exactly of everything that you want to hear with us. So, in terms of the tiers, is there one tier of pricing that sticks out to you more than the others? Hey, Phil, you got it? I am not sure why Phil cannot hear me anymore. Hey, Phil, you got me? Oh, we got maybe have a little audio difficulties here, so just bear with me here for a second. I'm not sure why for some reason Phil cannot hear me. So hold on about that. Ooh, right. Check, check, check. One, two, 1, 2. Testing the microphone. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. All right, hopefully we are back. Had to really boost my microphone here in the studio, so hopefully if you can hear us in the chat, please let me know. Not sure exactly what happened there, Phil. All of a sudden, I muted my mic for a second, and it got really, really low. So hopefully everyone can hear me now. So yeah, sometimes these technical things just happen in audio producing, but we are back here. So yeah, we were talking about the pricing in terms of these tiers, because we break them down into 4 tiers. Is there? Let's just start with tier 1. Is there a driver in tier 1 that their price concerns you?
Not particularly, because of the way that we build lineups for super speedway races, where we're just pretty much price agnostic. I mean, like, I was not looking whatsoever at salaries on DraftKings or FanDuel this week. I mean, it's just simply look at the driver, look where they start, and go from there. So if you do have concerns about Chase Elliott at 11,000 on DraftKings and 11,800 on FanDuel, I wouldn't concern myself that much this week, because the thing that you're worrying about, not trying to maximize fantasy points per dollar, is you're just trying to maximize the potential place differential and finishing position that these drivers have. So if that's a part of your process and something that you're worried about, just kind of put that on the back burner for this week.
You look at, in terms of those 4 drivers that are in that tier 1, which is the 10K and 11K pricing on DraftKings. Ryan Blaney, it has the best starting position at number 9. And of course, we've already kind of touched on this about, that point differential in this race. And tier 2, we've got a lot of drivers that are in that top 5. But does Ryan Blaney's starting position concern you at 10,000?
Blaney, and if people are looking at the race sheets, tweeted out the link to the race sheets enough that people should know where to find it. If you're looking at the race sheets and you're seeing that he's got a turquoise blue number next to him, that he's part of this group that I'm considering a one-off. Like if you're in tournaments and you're not just going to do this, the stacked drivers in the back idea, that you're gonna take some shots on these guys that are starting a little further forward, that in case they get a top 6 score because other guys don't move up, or not enough guys move up, or perhaps that this guy's able to sit on a lead for a while and it doesn't end up falling back. Blaney is definitely in that discussion. We saw him win earlier this year at Talladega. He's posted some good finishes here before at Daytona, but they've all been in the February race. Mm-hmm. His February finishes 2nd, 7th, 31st. That race he got wrecked out. Wasn't part of anything of his doing. And then 2nd here earlier this year. Now, when you look at the summer races, you've got 26th, 40th, and 36th. So, and this is a weird split, but there are drivers like Blaney and believe if you look at Denny, that they do better in the February race, but when it comes to the race that was previously held in July, now August, they don't do so well. Blaney is a guy that if you're going 20 max or 150 max in tournaments, and you're trying to add some of these guys that you suspect will come in at lower ownership that could lead some laps and still finish high, Blaney is definitely in that discussion.
And by the way, we should mention that I know you mentioned about your race sheets. They are free this week, so people can check that out right there. Awesemo.com, best place to go. Go under the NASCAR section, you'll see it. The link there in Phil's article is definitely something you gotta take advantage of when you're looking to make your lineups this week here, or tonight, excuse me, for the Coke Zero Sugar 400. Kyle Busch, I don't think you really touched on him, starting at 11th, 10,200 on DK.
Yeah. Kyle's never really a guy in these plate races that I'm looking to target unless he is starting 25th or worse. And 11th, there's a little bit of place differential, but what he's done here at Daytona over the last 7 races, average finish of 23.7. He's only finished 4 of those 7 races. Kyle's not a guy that I'm really looking to zero my lineups around in tournaments because, in this 10K and above range on DraftKings for tournaments, it's either Blaney or it's Hamlin.
Do you like Kyle in cash?
Kyle, no, for cash, he's starting way too far forward. The rule this week in cash is all of your drivers should start 25th or worse. It doesn't, and you can look at the race sheets and you can see who's done better at Daytona or the last 4 plate races and kind of get an idea who you want to target over there. But in cash, 25th or worse, every single one of your drivers. That's got to be your hard, fast rule.
By the way, if you do have any questions for Phil, you can hit those right up there in the YouTube chat or in the premium Slack account, as I do have that up, as well as I can be able to see any questions that you do have over there. Of course, when you're talking about looking to put those lines together and you want to take advantage of our ownership projections, our driver projections, and the top drivers tool, you got to sign up for Awesemo Plus NASCAR Weekly Pass for $9.95. That's right, $9.95 get you a week of Awesemo Plus NASCAR Weekly. As I mentioned, get those projections, and that top drivers tool, definitely something you want to take advantage of, so be sure to go over to awesemo.com/join to take advantage of that deal before tonight's race. Now we look into tier number 2, Phil. This is drivers who are in the 8K and 9K range. Eric Jones, 9,800. Brad Kozlowski, 9,600. Joe Logano, 9,400. Kevin Harvick, 9,200. Austin Dillon, 9,000. Martin Truex Jr., 8,800. Brendan Gaughan, 8,600. Kurt Busch, 8,400. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 8,300. And Eric Almarola at 8,100. Let's start with Kevin Harvick on the pole.
Play races, I never ever look to play the pole sitter because out of all of the drivers, he has the most place differential to lose and the greatest likelihood of ending up with a negative score. if you're looking at the race sheets, go to the laps led data page, third page. You've got the different boxes there with numbers. That third box is the pole sitter. And if you'll look at this, going back to 2013, the pole sitter only averaging 26.6 laps led per race. However, when you look at the average finish, 20.4. So on average, your pole sitter here at Daytona since 2013 is losing 19 positions per event. 26.6 laps led. That's not going to be anywhere close to covering all of that place differential that they're losing. So your safest bet is just don't worry about Kevin Harvick. The only way that Harvick is going to make bank today is that he is going to have to, there's going to have to be some sort of weird discussion amongst all of the four drivers where Harvick is going to just sit on the lead and maintain it, and everybody's going to try to play it safe for the first two segments, and then whatever happens in the final moments, it happens. But we're not privy to those conversations. Sometimes we find them out during the pre-race show. Like yesterday, we found out that Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric, the only two forward drivers in the Xfinity race, had a discussion over lunch what they were going to try to do to keep themselves out front, and that was all fine and dandy until they lost the lead. So I mean, the plans went out the door, and Harvick starts on the pole next to Martin Truex. So it's not like he has another Ford driver there to help preserve the lead. So I think with Harvick, don't take your chances.
Now, of course, anyone that follows you on social media, I saw you tweeting away over the last 24 hours or so about Brendan at 8,600. He's starting 40th.
If Brendan isn't the highest owned driver on DraftKings, FanDuel, or SuperDraft, because I mean, even on SuperDraft, he got a ridiculous champion multiplier. It's going to baffle me. 6,500 on FanDuel, that's way too cheap. 8,600 on DraftKings, yes, that's pricing up his because of his place differential, but still, even that's too cheap for the driver that's starting dead last with an average finish of 15.3 in these last seven Daytona races. He's a must in cash. And quite frankly, I posted some build rules in the Awesemo NASCAR Slack chat about, like, if you're just stepping in to your research today and you have no clue what to do, there's 3 basic things that you have to follow. I told everybody the best thing that you can do with your ownership, if you're doing 20 max or 150 max, is cap your ownership on everybody at 55% to 60% maximum. That way, if one guy wrecks out or a couple of guys wreck out, it doesn't just totally destroy your night. But the exception is Brendan. He starts so far back, his floor is so high that you can go overboard or even just completely 100% on him. And even if he has a bad night, he isn't going to kill you.
Yeah, looking at our projections on DraftKings, we have him as the second highest owned driver. On FanDuel, he would come in at number 7 on FanDuel. So, and for only a driver higher than him on DraftKings is Chase Elliott.
Yeah, and that was going to be something I was wondering about, because a mental block that a lot of people have when it comes to these plate races is the whole idea of leaving cash on the table, and the easiest way to not do that is to pick the driver that has the highest salary with place differential that is also a name that you know. So yeah, if you're looking to get away from the chalk, go lower on Chase, go lower on Gone.
Stenhouse Jr. is another guy we're seeing some good ownership on.
Stenhouse, he's been, he's had his moments here at Daytona back in 2016, I believe. He won Talladega in the spring, and then he came back and then he won Daytona here in July. The one thing that Roush still has going for them is that they're pretty good when it comes to setting these cars up for plate races. So Ricky was always able to take advantage of that. And the wonder was, okay, now that he's moved on to JTG Doherty, does that continue on, or was that more of what he had at Roush? And we saw him finish second in that race at Talladega. So you have to believe that Ricky's good finishes at plate races was a combination of the vehicle and his talent. And quite frankly, JTG Doherty, they do a good job of putting these cars together for plate races. So, he's got a lot of place differential, and he's probably the farthest starting back driver that you could project to actually win this race.
Mm-hmm. Looking at some other drivers in this tier, the highest in this tier is Eric Jones at 9,800 on DK, and he's starting in 20th.
Yeah, Jones, he's on that fringe line starting 20th where you could play him in cash, but I think you're better off kind of going down a little bit farther down the grid. Mm-hmm. Jones has a win here. He has a third place finish at Daytona. He's done fairly well here, and we know that he has every reason in the world to try to do his best tonight because a win, and he's in the playoffs, especially when we still don't know just what he's going to do next season.
In terms of some other drivers in this tier that, maybe, as you have done your analysis this week, is there someone that, maybe you've sat there and said, man, I really like him in this spot. And then all of a sudden you look at the ownership and you're like, whoa, was kind of expecting a little higher ownership.
Tell me this, Jason, because I'm not looking at the ownership. Where do we have Austin Dillon sitting at right now?
Austin Dillon, he is at 12%.
Okay. Austin, he's got a little bit of place differential. He's run fairly well at Daytona. In this race last year, he was running up front before Clint Bowyer saw the rain and decided to get a little wild up at the front. If you're looking for a GPP play that's going to come in at lower ownership, 12% is what Alex has him projected at. I think Austin makes a lot of sense. And another guy to add to that fold is Eric Almarola. We all know Eric's been great at plate races throughout his career, no matter where he's raced at. And if you've looked at my projections, I've got Eric winning the race tonight. So that's another guy that you could add to that one-offs for tournaments.
It's interesting that you asked me about ownership for Austin Dillon. Martin Truex Jr., who's $200 less, and then Eric Almirola, who you mentioned, about $900 less. Their ownerships are pretty much the same.
Wow. Yeah, see, that's going to be the funny thing is that I think most people that are playing tonight understand this principle of playing drivers in the back. But the GPP heart and a lot of people say, well, I can do 4 guys starting 20th or worse, and then I'll pick a couple of these guys up here, and or maybe a 1 at max, and it's probably going to leave a lot of flat ownership spread across a lot of players.
Now we look in tier 3. These are drivers in the 7K and 6K range. Top of this list, Alex Bowman at 7,900, and the bottom of the list at 6,000, Chris Buescher.
Okay, this is majority of guys that I think that are safe for your lineups. Bowman and Byron, I really don't know what to think about them. Byron's, he's on the fringe of losing his spot to Jimmy. So, Byron has every reason to keep himself in a clean, not be overly aggressive, but definitely have Chad Knaus in his ear telling him where Jimmy is and what Jimmy's doing during the race. Bowyer is another guy that you could add for a one-off play in tournaments. Same thing for Jimmy because of his motivation. Christopher is beyond that 20th starting line that we generally look at, but I just don't know how I feel about Christopher Bell and, quite frankly, Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick, all of those guys. I really like Ross Chastain. He's priced up. He's back in that 77 car, even though he doesn't or he shouldn't have the Chip Ganassi backing this week, but he's priced up primarily because of that place differential. and you look at his finishes here at Daytona, you've got 25th, 30th, 10th, and 21st. So I mean the floor is definitely there for Cash, and he's even got a little bit of a ceiling because of how far he starts back. Matt Benedetto, same reason, he barely sits above the cutoff line for the playoffs, so he knows what he's got to do. And then you've got McDowell, Hunter, Wallace, Newman, all these guys that should really be in your player pools. And probably out of those four, I think my two favorite are Newman and Michael McDowell.
So Tyler Reddick's no longer in the fan club anymore. Was he a 1 week fan club?
Yeah. We're kind of pushing him aside, and now this week we're going to be Ryan Newman stands.
I remember last Saturday I had someone text me, go, boy, I guess I need to put Reddick in my lineup. I go, hey, you gotta listen to Phil, man. You know, you gotta listen to what he says here. In terms of the value plays in this tier. You mentioned about some of the guys you like, but is there a value play that, maybe could be, a nice little GPP play?
In this range, like the two cash plays, well, yeah, the cash play that's going to get everybody's attention is going to be Ty Dillon. Ty's been pretty good here, just as a plate racer in general, but the February race wrecked out, finished 30th, but before that, 4th, 6th, 6th. Ty's been pretty good at Daytona. Starting 29th, he's got a lot of place differential to gain. But the GPP play right here, I want to really like Chris Buescher for cash, but starting 17th, it's way too far forward for my taste. But Buescher has been so good here at Daytona, and I'm hoping that him starting 17th, it's going to scare people off. You look at what he's done: third back in February, then a 17th and a 37th when he was caught up in a wreck. But before that, 2 fifth-place finishes. He's coming into that car that Ricky Stenhouse drove to victory. Had all of those, had all of that productivity, and I think Buescher is definitely capable of a top 5 finish tonight. And I had to scale my Buescher ownership back because when I initially started, I was sitting at about 60% Buescher, and I thought that's way too high for a guy that isn't starting 21st, 22nd, 23rd. There's just, there's a little more risk there than I'm comfortable with. So I definitely dialed that back, but single entry, love Buescher.
By the way, if you're watching us right now, be sure to smash that like button right here on YouTube. That does help us out a lot. Also, if you're not subscribed to Awesemo, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell as well. Of course, we've got a busy day of shows coming here on Awesemo.com. We've got NBA Live Before Lock. They're at 2:30 Eastern Time. Also, we've got MMA Live Before Lock. That'll be at 4:30. And I believe MLB Live Before Lock will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So you got to check out all the shows we have over here at Awesemo.com. And now as we look at tier number 4, I know it's your favorite tier, the drivers that are in the 4 and 5K. Is there one that you point to in this tier?
I would say the chalk would be Corey LaJoie, because Corey keeps showing up in nearly every optimal lineup at plate races. I mean, it doesn't matter where he's typically starting in the 20s, of course, but it doesn't matter where he's starting, what the race is. He always finds his way into the optimal lineup because he races his way to the front. And LaJoie is another guy with a win because he's top 30 in points. He'll advance himself into the end of the playoffs. Really like LaJoie. You can play him in cash, but there are quite a few guys that should be in your player pool in this area. Talk about Ryan Preece. He's been fairly good. I think he's been better at Talladega than he's been better at Daytona, but he's shown a fairly good floor here for plate races. Play Joey Gase. He starts 38th. He's only got 2 places to lose. And if I look at his finishes, 23rd, 27th, 25th. So I mean, we're talking about maybe a floor of a 25th to 27th place finish, but if you're going to get 12 to 13 spots out of Gase, then that's definitely acceptable. You can play JJ Yaley. JJ has raced the last 2 Daytona night races, and in those races, his average starting position has been around 38th, and he's finished 12th and 18th. You can play Yaley in cash. I think he's that safe.
Mm-hmm.
Timmy Hill, same thing for him, and Brennan Poole there at 4,600. He starts 32nd. He started 34th in the February race and finished 16th. So, I mean, all of these guys, I think, should be in your player pool. Don't discount them because of their name or who they drive for.
Or would you say these are, you feel safer with taking these guys in cash as opposed to GPPs?
I wouldn't base the majority of my cash lineup on these guys starting 30th or worse, but there's no reason why they shouldn't be in your cash lineup. I mean, they all have amazing floors, and that's what you need in a race like today.
Yeah. Unless you're like my buddy Pete, and he'll probably take one of these drivers, and they're going to wreck like in the first stage.
Pete in his NASCAR DFS luck, it's something to behold.
It's about a guarantee. I'll get a text tonight, as we'll be texting during the fights, and we'll go, Fighter X just wrecked lap 4, and of course I had him.
Yep.
It is just absurd. I do want to get into some questions, so start firing away those right now here on YouTube. Someone asked about Brad Kozlowski, who is starting in the 4 spot and at 9,600 on DK.
Perhaps I'm looking a little too much at his recent history at Daytona, but it is dreadful. I mean, it is absolutely dreadful. Average starting position of 13th, average finishing position of 30.4. He is averaging negative DraftKings points, which is a wonder in itself. Let's just go through these finishes. 36th, 39th, 12th, 36th, 32nd, 31st, 27th. It seems like whatever bad luck Keselowski could find himself in, it finds its way towards him. And, could Brad jump out to the lead? Yeah, we saw him. Let me go back here to the laps led page. Yeah, it would have been the summer race of 2016. He led 115 of the 160 laps. So, I mean, could Brad pull that off again? Sure, but I don't like what he's done recently, and with him starting that far forward, it scares me that he could end up in negative again.
I got a question over from the Slack premium Slack channel from GG123. Says, so is this a race where leaving a lot of salary on the table is really common?
Yeah, if you are building your lineups correctly, you will have thousands of dollars left over. Like the team that has the least amount of money left over currently sits at $2,000, and then I've got some teams that have over $10,000 left over in salary. So, like I said, don't worry about salaries, don't worry about the cap. Just be agnostic to them. You are worrying about where these drivers start. That's simply it.
Next question we got from Jay Kearney. He says, which Busch guy do you guys like?
Oh, I guess if you're gonna force me, it's gonna be Kurt, simply because he starts 13th versus Kyle Kurt starts 13th while Kyle starts 11th. Kurt. This is that meme where Jan from The Office is holding up the 2 pictures, and I'm being asked to tell what the difference is, and here I am saying this is the same picture. Kyle and Kurt are the same driver tonight. I don't want to play either.
Let me ask you a question about SuperDraft. Brennan at 1.9 times. Can you avoid it?
No.
I pulled up all the multipliers on SuperDraft, and I was kind of scrolling down, and I was looking for him based on the conversation we had a little bit earlier. I was like, man, at 1.9 times, how do you avoid it?
No, and okay, that's a discussion. His champion multiplier is 2.85. That is, I mean, that's what we normally give like James Davison or JJ Yaley at Dover last week. there. The only way that Gone isn't your top scoring champion play is that he's going to have to, of course, wreck out or not finish in the top 20. My model gave Brendan a 12th place finish, and that gave him 193.8 super draft points as the champion. I mean, far above what everybody else is doing in my model. Yeah, you can try to play around with Brendan not being your champion pick because this is Daytona. But if you're not going to play him in your champion pick, you got to slam him as a flex play.
Back over to Slack. Hoodmaster goes, not sure if you guys talked about McDowell or Nemechek. If not, could you tell me your thoughts?
Love McDowell. You look at McDowell's finishes here at Daytona. He only has, in the last 7 races, he only has one finish worse than 15th. Starting 26th, he's got lots of place differential. He's a guy that you can trust in cash. He's a guy that should be in the majority of your lineups in tournaments. John Hunter, as much as I want to be scared by this guy because of what he's been doing recently, you look at his finishes at plate races. In February at Daytona, he finished 11th. You go over he's only raced in 2, of course, Daytona and Talladega, but an average finish of 9.5. So perhaps the kid knows what he's doing around these high banked ovals. The one thing with him is that he starts 24, so there's a lot of guys behind him with more place differential, but perhaps what Nemechek's recently done is going to be sticking in people's minds because of recency bias, and you can get Nemechek at a little lower ownership.
We got News Guy chiming in on Slack saying, who's the must driver you have to have FanDuel single entry?
Woo! Despite his salary, I'm going to say it's either Ricky or Gone. I mean, I know Gone is going to be chalky as heck tonight, but the amount of ways that Gone hits versus the amount of ways that he doesn't hit, there's just so many more ways that he's a value tonight than he isn't.
Back over to YouTube. This comes from Rashad. He says, between Logano, Truex, and Almarola, who would be the best GPP play between those guys? So that's Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., and Almarola.
Truex you can completely X out. He has not been a good plate racer in his career. You look at he's got a 2nd place finish in the summer of 2018. Everything else has been definitely subpar. Logano, another guy that's probably better at Talladega than he is here at Daytona, but he's got a couple of a couple of 4th place finishes in the 6th in his last 7 races. So I think I'll just go back to Eric Almarola.
Next up, our Stanley goes my core, Elliott, Chastain, Brendan, and mix the other 3 up. Is this okay?
Yeah, so if you're going to go 100% those 3 and then mix and match your ownership with those other guys. Like I talked about, Gone has such an incredible floor. The one worry that I do have with that is that you are making your core 2 of the chalkiest drivers in tonight's field. So you're opening yourself up to getting duplicated a lot.
Next up, Ford says McDowell or LaJoy.
I think Corey, just because we consistently see this good to great ceiling out of LaJoy at these types of races.
Next up, our Stanley says, who would you play if you could only play one, Yelly, Gase, or Hill?
Going back to JJ.
Okay. Our Stanley asks, are any cars going to the back?
They haven't done inspection yet, but here's the thing to remember. This is Daytona. Even if your driver that you want to go hog wild on gets sent to the back, within a couple of laps, he'll be right back where he was. So if anybody fails inspection and starts at the back, don't sweat it.
You mentioned about, look, there's nothing wrong with leaving money on the table. And JJ asked the question. He says, how much money is okay to leave on the table?
I haven't really played around with it just looking at salaries, but I imagine you could build a lineup that is going to leave like 400 to 500 over. And, quite frankly, if you find yourself in that position, that's fine. Well, what you're focusing on is where these drivers start. And if the lineup that you build based off of place differential and finishing position potential ends up, leaving a couple of $100 left over, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just naturally just in any type of DFS. How much money you have, you're like, man, I got to spend all the way up. But if you like certain players, you just take those players, and you put them in there. Jay Kearney says, who do y'all feel is a must for DraftKings single entry?
If you're looking to get a little wild, then I'm going to say Chris Buescher. But if you're looking to start guys further in the back, it's probably Corey LaJoie.
In terms of a single entry on DraftKings, who do you start? Who do you build your lineup around? I guess that's probably like when I'm building single entries, it's all about, okay, who do I want to build my roster around?
Yeah, if you're just doing a single entry stuff on DraftKings, then I mean, this is Daytona. Anything can happen. So we're not playing Chase. We're not playing Brendan Gaughan. Instead, we're going to start a little further up with Chris Buescher. We're going to play one of the other, punt plays instead of Gaughan. So we're going to play either Yaley, Hill, Gase, Chastain, and quite frankly, the rest of the guys there in the middle, they're fair game. And in fact, if you wanted to get even, just a little more wild, you could add another guy in the teens, because we have seen optimal lineups where two guys starting in the teens have, picked up enough place differential that they became optimal because not enough guys in the back did the same.
Rashad says he's got over 1,100 left over. Mike says in FanDuel he's got over 10K in a bunch of lineups. R. Stanley says put in order Blaney, Kyle, and Hamlin.
Blaney, Hamlin, Kyle.
Okay. Is Hoff playable?
I don't. You broke me. You finally broke me.
Look, the reaction to me says everything.
I already have this perception in my mind of what kind of driver Quinn Houff is, and I'm pretty sure that the only reason that he's there is either because of Daddy's money or sponsorships that have put him in that seat. He's raced at Daytona twice, and those finishes were 39th and 37th. I don't think that he's going to give you anything positive to what he is.
Of course, this is a NASCAR DFS strategy show for today's Coke Zero Sugar 400. We'll let you know about the little promo we got going over for fantasy football. Sign up today for an Awesemo Plus NFL annual pass for 30% off. We use a promo code Roger at checkout. This gives you access to player projections, ownership projections, and all the premium content we've got for NFL DFS. Also, we will give you the season-long fantasy football best ball draft kit for free when you make this purchase. This offer is available through August the 31st. It gives you 365 days worth of Awesemo Plus NFL and the draft kit, a $280 value for only $175. Sign up by clicking the Awesemo Plus tab on the Awesemo.com homepage, so definitely want to take advantage of that. Ford says, how do you feel about Ty Dillon today?
Love Ty. Great cash or GPP play. Guy that should be in a lot of your lineups.
Someone mentioned about Quinn, says he's the one guy, if you gave him the full horsepower, that couldn't keep up with the other restrictor plate cars.
Yeah, and since we're talking about a driver back here in this area that I wouldn't play, I'm going to add James Davidson to this list. Davidson starts 39th, so I mean, he's only got one spot to lose. But the thing that scares me about Davidson is that this is going to be his first ever kind of race like this on a super speedway. Yeah, he did the Daytona road course, but don't even try to compare the road course to this race. I just worry about what he's going to do, being that he's had no practice. And when he tried to race Talladega, NASCAR said, no, come back next week. That way you don't kill yourself this week. You know, I worry about just what could he pick up a couple of positions just by place differential? Sure. But I think, you know, at max, you're probably getting maybe 4 to 5 spots. And at worst, you're getting dead last.
Stanley asks, he says, what car make does the best at Daytona?
These plate races, it has been Ford. Ford continues to show that they produce the best cars for these tracks. And that brings us to something else. Normally, we throw out the whole idea of stacking when it comes to NASCAR DFS, but this is a race tonight where you could conceivably put together stacks, not just teammates, but also manufacturers. So if you know your cars well enough, you could conceivably look at these this starting grid and say, okay, well, I can put together 6 Fords or 6 Chevys. Kind of on the extreme end because of where they start, but I could put together a bunch of Toyotas. And then you've also got the teams themselves and their alliances. Like Hendrick has an alliance with Chip Ganassi. Stuart Haas has its alliance with the 32 at Go Fast. You've got JGR with their alliance with the 95. You know, we know that these manufacturers and these teams will work together to get up to the front and compete for the win. So, you know, definitely take advantage of that.
Next up, Rashad says 8,600 and below. Who should I go with for the 20 max entry DK? Do I go low to the 7K or 6K range?
The majority of my highlighted plays are in that 6K range. So yeah, I mean, just don't even worry about, you know, what the cost is, what's going to leave you with. Just go down to that low 6K range, and you'll find a bunch of guys that are valuable.
We got another question in relation to salary left over, is having 2,000 left on DKOK. We've kind of talked about this, but I tell you, for the past couple weeks we've been doing shows, I can't recall us getting so many comments in relation to so much salary being left over.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talked about this. It bends your mind to play this game because you're always trying to maximize your salary cap, regardless of what you're playing. Let me go over these optimal lineups for the summer Daytona races going back to 2016.
Okay.
38,800 for 2016. That was the total salary cap used. Then you go to 2017, 36,700 of the total salary cap was used. You go to 2018, 41,100 of the total salary cap was used. And in last year's race, 33,100.
Wow.
I mean, we are talking about massive amounts of salary cap that are left over. So I mean, you achieve those kinds of lineups by having 4 or even 5 guys that are starting, you know, in the 30s. Those definitely work out because of attrition. And if I'm remembering correctly, these night Daytona races tend to have more wrecks than the 500s themselves. So I mean, not that you're intentionally going to try to build a lineup that has 20,000 to 15,000 left over, but it's amazing to see that year after year, the optimal lineup isn't anywhere close to using all of the total available cap.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some ownership figures right now. Just looking on FanDuel. I know we talked a little bit about Ross Chastain a little bit. Ryan Pierce we talked about. Just kind of look at some of these drivers who maybe we haven't really discussed. Bubba Wallace is someone we really haven't discussed. He's priced at 7,000. We just got him under 10% ownership.
Yeah, Bubba, another guy that with a win can make his way into the playoffs. Bubba, his finishes here at Daytona: 15th, 15th, 38th. He got way too aggressive, way too early in that race. 14th, 2nd, and 15th. So you take out that wreck in the Daytona 500 of 2019. He's about a 14th to 15th place driver. His average running position over those races is 16. So, Bubba doesn't get crazy. Bubba kind of hangs around. You're probably getting a finish in the high teens out of Bubba tonight. I like that.
Next up, Charles says, "What's the best pivot from Ricky Stenhouse on FanDuel?"
Okay, if we're just talking salary, God, you have to go all the way down to the sevens to find a guy that I like. But if you're talking about in his starting position, then I don't think you're going up the grid to McDowell, Priest, Ty Dillon. I think you're going down the grid and you're looking at those guys like Gase, Yaley, Hill, or Poole.
Next up, Mike says, "Is Denny Hamlin getting too much ownership based on name recognition and Daytona being so unique?"
Yeah, and I think so, because everybody remembers these wins, because he won in February. He won the year before that in February, a third place finish in February of 2018. Then he finished 7th. Then 2018 that was. Then he finished 17th in 2017 in the Daytona 500. But then the year before that, he won. So we remember all of these wins, but what we don't forget is, like I highlighted, what he's done in these summer races, and the finishes aren't that great.
It's in terms of Ricky Stenhouse on FanDuel. I want to say, as I recall, he was the highest owned. Yeah, highest owned, 46%.
Yeah, he's the highest priced driver on FanDuel. I mean, FanDuel finally decided, hey, let's price up people for place differential like DraftKings.
Mention this question from Slack in relation to tomorrow's race. He says, "When thinking about tomorrow's race, do we have the same theory for setting lineups, guys in the back with place differential over guys in the front?"
Tomorrow's race, as in the truck race?
I'm guessing that's what he means, yeah.
The trucks are racing at a half-mile flat oval in St. Louis, so no.
Okay. That is good to know there. Before we get out of here, any last things you want to mention to everybody that's been watching about, in terms of your thoughts leading into this one?
You guys want Millie Maker tickets, right? This is your – and DraftKings is running a $2 entry tournament, 150 max, for their live final. So if you're looking to get some Millie Maker tickets, looking to, by God's grace, win your way into the live final, this is your best chance. If you're just the regular NASCAR DFS player who reads some articles, watches a video, builds 20 lineups, and is looking to make some profitability, if you're looking to get those extra things going into the week one NFL season, or even into a live final, this is your best week to do it. I mean, so don't be afraid to throw some entries into those 10 cent, 25 cent, $1, or even the $2 live final. Great week to do that.
And of course, if you want to follow, everyone wants to follow Phil on Twitter. Phil, give them that Twitter handle if they got any questions for you.
Look me up. Follow me at Race Sheets on Twitter.
Of course, I am at Jason_Floyd. Of course, coming up here today here on Awesemo, we've got NBA live before lock, MMA live before lock, and we also have a MLB live before lock. So that is going to wrap it up for this edition of the NASCAR DFS Strategy Show.
Good show, sir.